Sometimes the best fabric is right in front of you. Grab a new or gently used shower curtain and let's create home decor. For this project, buy multiple pool noodles from the dollar store. You'll need at least 8 to 10 noodles. To start, make 4 of your pool noodles longer by cutting off a small section from another pool noodle and attaching it to a long pool noodle with duct tape. I went for a measurement of 68 inches with each lengthened pool noodle. Now, take the 4 lengthened pool noodles and create a circle from each one. Next, measure the height of the 4 stacked pool noodles. Take this measurement, mine was 9 inches, and cut out pool noodle pieces to size. Take these noodle pieces and place them standing on one end inside the stacked pool noodle circles. Fill the center of the rings with the cut pool noodle pieces. Now take some duct tape and start to cover the top and sides of the filled pool noodles. Press the tape onto the noodles as you go so the tape stays secure. Continue until the top and sides are covered with tape. Then flip the noodles over and tape the bottom as well. Once most of the noodles are covered with tape, you can cover exposed areas with small pieces of tape. I used white duct tape from the dollar store because the background of my shower curtain that I'm going to use in a moment is white. Take your freshly washed shower curtain and place the tape-wrapped pool noodles on top. Pull one corner of the shower curtain and wrap it and secure it to the bottom of the noodles. I used a staple gun, but you can use a hand stapler or even more duct tape if you want to secure. I wasn't sure if the staples would actually hold onto the pool noodles, but they stapled and held beautifully to the duct tape covering the noodles. You can leave your Ottoman as is at this point, but adding a little extra is fun. I wrapped the side of the Ottoman with cotton rope and tied a simple knot to secure. Place your new poof Ottoman in front of a chair and enjoy putting your feet up in style at the end of the day. I hope this inspired you to take a shower curtain and some pool noodles and create a unique and stylish poof Ottoman. Thanks for watching Hometalk. I'll see you next time. Head to your local hardware store and buy a sheet of OSB. First, cut the OSB into 15-inch squares. You will need 3 of these squares. Apply wood glue to the edge of one of the squares and place it vertically on the edge of another, creating a 90-degree angle. Screw in 2-inch corner brackets to secure the L shape. Don't use the screws that come with the brackets as they will be too long. Instead, use some 1/2-inch screws. Set aside those original screws though, and you will use them later. Screw in 2 more brackets and you will now have a U shape. Place a 14-inch 2x4 between the 2 side pieces to act as a temporary brace. Cut a piece of fabric that is at least 50 by 20 inches. Remove the temporary brace and line the inside of the U shape with the fabric with about 2 inches hanging over the edges. Take a staple gun and staple the fabric onto the outside of the U-shaped wood. I used a pneumatic stapler, but you can also use a regular hand staple gun. Fold the side edges in and staple around the outside of the U-shape. Again, it is very important that you are pulling the fabric taut before each staple. Now, take that 2x4 piece and wrap it in a piece of fabric. Use your stapler to wrap and secure the fabric. It's just like wrapping a package. Press the wrapped 2x4 back into the center of the U-shape. Take some of those original screws that came with the brackets and screw the 2x4 in place from the outside of the box. Now take a large piece of fabric, find the center of one edge, and staple it wrong side up to the center of the box. Now place a pool noodle from the dollar store and center it on the box, tucking it in against the stapled fabric. Wrap the fabric over the noodle, pulling the fabric taut and securing it with the staple in the center. Continue to staple around the pool noodle, tucking it into the fabric as you go. Continue with the same process with 5 more pool noodles until the wood box is covered. This can take some time. In fact, you may feel like you are in a wrestling match with the pool noodles. Stick with it. You might occasionally need to tuck and fold some fabric before stapling in order to get a smooth finish on top of the noodles. I actually ran out of fabric and needed to piece another piece of fabric in between two pool noodles before continuing. This was pretty easy to do. Pull the loose fabric at the end of the wrapped pool noodles over the edge of the bottom wood and staple along the inside edge so you have a clean finish. Cut away any excess fabric. I hope this inspired you to take some wood, some fabric, and some pool noodles and create your own comfy and stylish ottoman.
This ottoman was headed out to the curb. I decided to rescue it and give it a little makeover. This is made of microfiber, and you can paint microfiber. I picked up some white chalk paint, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of water, so it's really thin. Now I'm just using a big paintbrush to paint the fabric. Because the paint is really watered down, it's almost dyeing the fabric and really seeping in. Now that the paint is completely dry, I can add some more color to this. I picked up two kinds of fabric. I have kind of a citrusy, colorful pattern on each one, and I'm going to cut 2-inch wide strips. To attach this fabric to the ottoman, I'm using a special Mod Podge made for fabric. To use this, I'm going to add a thin coat to the back of the strip of fabric and then press it onto the ottoman. I want to seal it really good with my fingers and make sure it has a nice tight seal around the fabric. I'm going to repeat this for each strip of fabric that I cut. And then I need to walk away for a couple hours and let that dry. Once dry, it's time to seal that fabric in. So I'm just going to use another coat of Mod Podge over the top of the fabric. This is going to seal the edges and help this hold up to a lot of wear. Now I can use this in my living room. I've covered up the stained fabric and I can use it as a footstool, an extra seat, or a decorative spot. I hope this inspired you to save a footstool or a fabric piece from your curb and dress it up with paint and Mod Podge.
And I headed to my local craft store and picked up a wooden crate. I decided to paint it a beautiful shade of white, just using my favorite Zinsser primer. So I decided to paint the whole entire crate, making sure that I got in between all the rungs on the crate. Then to give my crate a bit of antique, rustic look, I came in with this gray wax, and then using a lint-free cloth, I rubbed it on the edges and then let it sit for a bit and then rubbed it in further just to really blend it in at the edges. And then this gives it just a little bit of a worn look. I used my cutting machine to cut my own stencil and place it on the one side, and then I just used some black acrylic paint to dab on and stencil in this unique number 3 look for old world vintage crate look. Next, I took the stool that I picked up at the antique mall and I removed the bottom feet. They just screwed in, so they were easy to unscrew and take apart. And then I decided that I wanted to give this a fresh new farmhouse look. So I actually had this IKEA pillowcase that I picked up quite a while ago at IKEA, and I never used it for anything. It has these neat button closures that I opened, and I just slid the ottoman inside and rebuttoned it back up. I folded the pillowcase over the edges of the ottoman, and then I used a crown stapler to secure it in place so that it was tightly fitted around the ottoman. Then I flipped my crate over so it was right side up, screwing into each 4 of the corners to make a hole, and then I just screwed the legs that were originally on my ottoman into the top part of my crate, so that when I flip this over, this is actually going to be the bottom, and I now have some new feet, well, new to me feet on the bottom. And then I'm going to take my pillow case that has my little ottoman inside, and I'm just going to set it on top of the crate. And then here we have my finished project. This is just a neat way to repurpose an old ottoman and reuse it with a crate to give it that antique look and a nice place where you can rest your feet at the end of a long day.
Grab some Elmer school glue for this renter-friendly project. First, I gave my window a really good cleaning. Grab some masking tape to mask out an abstract design, and then I'm going to take my Elmer's glue and pour it straight into the tray. Then I just rolled my glue onto the window. I removed that masking tape before the Elmer's glue could dry.
Grab an empty cardboard box and tuck in the side flaps. Take some jute rope, glue one end of the rope to the bottom corner of your box. Glue and wrap the entire outside of the box. Take a decorative towel and line the inside of the box. Pick up a planch stand dolly. Take a basket with a bottom that is larger. Attach the dolly to the bottom of the basket. Cut off the excess zip ties.
Grab one of these square clear plastic containers, a round garden dish, and some of these silver and white plates from the wedding aisle. I'm going to use a little bit of E6000 to secure them into place, and then I'm going to let this securely set. I'm also going to take the round garden dish and I'm going to glue that with the E6000 on top of the candle holders, and I gave it a good coat. Then I'm going to take my plastic plate and I'm going to glue it to the front, and then I'm going to give the whole thing a spray with this gray chalk paint, and then I'm going to come in just with some gray acrylic paint. I'm going to give it some texture on the sides as well as working in some black, and then I came in with some white paint and I just dry brushed it on. I decided for the bottom part I wanted to add a little bit of a bright color. I next came in with this metallic paint. Then I took some Mod Podge and I printed off a vintage scale face and I Mod Podged that into the middle of the plate. Then I took this and glued it back onto the front part.
Blow up a balloon, then grab some wood slices. Take 2 wood slices and glue the sides together using a low temp glue gun. Let the discs bend slightly so they follow the curve of the balloon. To fill in, glue smaller sized wood discs into these spaces. Once you have all the discs where you want them and the glue has set, pop the balloon. I styled my new wood slice bowl by laying some moss on a tray and nestling the wood slice bowl on top. Then I added a beautiful pink orchid.
Saw some candles from Pottery Barn. I thought it'd be fun to try making them myself. I'm going to put a little glue into a small container and then add a bit of paint. Now that I have the glue tinted, I'm going to paint it all over the glass dish on the outside. I'm going to leave these for a few hours before moving on. Using some Mod Podge, I'm going to paint it around the dishes. I can sprinkle the white glitter all over it, and then when it dries, the glitter will stay in place. I grabbed these pillar candles from the dollar store and I'm going to melt them down. I'm just going to use a couple of skewers to hold the wicks in place. I want to add some essential oil to give my candles a beautiful scent. It's time to fill the glass dishes. The final thing to do is to remove the skewers and then trim the wicks.
The next time you're browsing the toy aisle at Dollar Tree, don't pass by these plastic wiffle balls, and I'm going to take just some scrap fabric that I had laying around. I'm going to start with a bead of hot glue on my plastic wiffle ball, letting it set, and then pulling the fabric nice and tight. I'm going to wrap it around the wiffle ball. Then I'm going to glue that end down, and I'm just going to repeat this process over and over again, just overlapping my fabric a little bit each time.
Woven storage baskets aren't just for storage anymore. Hammer a small nail into the wall and hang basket number 1, number 2, and number 3 in whatever arrangement you like. This is perfect for storing bathroom essentials within easy reach. Grab some fabric softener and your favorite color of latex paint. Take some poster board and measure and cut out squares. Lay the poster board squares on the rug in a checkerboard pattern. Mix together 1 part latex paint to 1 part clear fabric softener and stir completely. Start to paint in the open areas between the squares. It's a good idea to paint all the squares lightly and then go back and fill in with more paint. Continue to add paint to each square until you get the color density that you want. Start to paint your pots and saucers with a matte finish paint or chalk paint. Take a paper napkin and separate the 2-ply layers. Draw a circle and cut it out with scissors. Take the saucer and brush the decoupage glue so the bottom and sides of the saucer are covered. Place the paper napkin circle and press down in the center and smooth the napkin out. Dip a small paintbrush in water and brush along the top of the saucer. Add a final layer of decoupage glue. Take a strong adhesive glue and place a ring of glue. Place the saucer on top of the bottom of the pot. Grab a can of black spray paint and a roll of rattan webbing. Grab one of those outdoor folding metal tables. Clean it up with cut some paper and tape to the table so only the frame shows. Give the frame a fresh coat of black spray paint and let it dry completely. Outline the top of the table onto the rattan webbing with a Sharpie. Cut out the circle with some sharp scissors. Spray one side of the rattan with some spray adhesive. Spray the top of the table and let it sit for a few seconds until the surface is tacky. Place and press the sticky side of the rattan circle onto the top of the table. Place some heavy books on top of the rattan. Use some sharp scissors to trim the excess rattan from the circle.
Grab some of these gold frames. I'm then going to come in with some wire cutters and I'm going to pull out the black tabs that keep the backing on. Then I'm going to take out the glass and I'm going to come with some E6000 and I'm going to glue the glass inside the frame. Then I'm going to come and take 8 of the frames and I'm going to glue 2 of them together. And then I'm going to clamp them together and I'm going to let this set overnight. I came back the next day, removed all my heavy objects that I placed on top, and then as well removed the clamps from all the frames. So I'm going to glue all the sides and then I'm going to just raise them up here and build a rectangular shape. So 2 frames on each end and then the 2 that are glued together for the sides. I'm going to let this set overnight again, making sure that the glue is really solid. And then I'm just going to come in and finish it up with a nice A-frame top with my remaining 4 frames.
You know all those lonely donated lampshades? Pick up a matching pair. Pick up a thrifted belt. Run a bead of clear glue around the perimeter. Take the other lampshade, place it on top of the other lampshade, take some jute twine and tie the inner hardware of the 2 lamps together. Give the connected shades a little shake to make sure they are securely connected. Take the belt and buckle it around the skinny center of the 2 lampshades. Add a little glue to the loose end of the belt and secure it to the rest of the belt. Find a thin wood circle disc. Paint the edge with some acrylic paint. And peel and stick wallpaper is perfect for this project. Place the wallpaper disc on the lampshade base.
Have a cylinder vase from the Dollar Tree, this epoxy pen holder on Amazon, and I'm gonna basically just trace. All right, so now that I have hollowed out the center, I wanna make sure that the paint doesn't necessarily sink in to the foam. So to create a barrier and something that'll dry relatively quickly, Mod Podge or like Elmer's glue, we're going to use a Dixie Belle paint.
Quick trip to my local Dollarama, separate the layers, cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water, paint it onto the side of the glass jar. Then lay down the paper nap and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. I've taken a battery operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar.
When I came across this labeling hack, I just had to share it. Type out names for labels that will keep you organized. Print out your label list on plain, ordinary white paper. Cut the words apart, leaving a little bit of white space surrounding the text. Now, take some clear packing tape and lay pieces of tape over each word. It helps if you put a coin on the end of the tape so you can lift it easily later on. With the edge of a debit or credit card, press against the taped word and rub vigorously across the top of the tape. Trim off any excess tape with scissors, then simply drop it in a bowl of water. Make sure it is completely submerged and let it soak for a couple of minutes. Once it has soaked for a bit, lift it from the water and start to rub across the back of the word with your fingers. The paper pulp will eventually come off from the tape, but the text will still be there. No more searching for tea bags or coffee pods at our house with clearly labeled storage.
You want to make sure that you have a nice clean surface. Rubbing alcohol is a good option. You'll need some sort of stencil and line that up and then just press down firmly. And it's really important here that you maintain the best seal possible. You'll want to take some painter's tape and put it around the surrounding edges. Now that you have your stencil in place, it's time to apply the etching cream. I typically do about a 5-minute time to allow it to sit, and then we'll rinse it off. Run it under a stream of warm water and just allow the cream to gently rinse off. Once you have the etching cream all rinsed off, you can go ahead and remove the stencil and the tape. But we're going to take it one step further, and I'm going to be using this Rub and Buff product to add some color to it. Once you're done, fill them up with your favorite contents and display. The options are absolutely endless. I just went ahead and emptied out these containers, and then I went online and printed out what I wanted each one to say. So I'm going to be taking this piece right here, taping it to wherever I want this. You're gonna use whatever paint pen that you have on hand. All you're gonna do is just take your paint pen and then trace exactly what the word says. But all you have to do is just remove that. And then of course my double-sided tape stuck on there, and you can see the word just transferred really nicely there. This method gives it a really clean look. As you can see, the letters are pretty much exactly what I printed out, and it transferred perfectly onto the containers.
So the first step of this process is going to be emptying out our messy spice drawer. So now that we have our drawer dimensions, we're gonna go ahead and take a piece of just Dollar Tree foam core, and I'm only going to do 3 tiers. So I'm just gonna do 1.5, and we're gonna get 3 of those as well. All right, so now we are going to cut these out. Now the final step is gonna be taking 2 of these pieces. We're going to hot glue them, and you're gonna wanna make this a right angle. And now for the assembly. And the rest of them I am just putting in. I'm gonna go ahead and take these glass jars that I found on Amazon. And now I'm going to take my first spice. And that is it. So now we're gonna close this up. So I got these from Etsy. You could really get them from anywhere. I believe Amazon has quite a bit of them, Etsy, and then you could just make your own if you'd like. I'm gonna go ahead and start adding our spices. It's just so farmhouse and fresh. I love it.
I picked up these containers at Dollar Tree. They can be found in the travel section. The first thing I'm going to do is use some nice and strong super glue or E6000 and attach the magnets to the bottom of each one of the containers. While that's drying, I'm going to upcycle an old picture frame. On the back of this frame, I am going to add some magnets. Now I'm going to use these glittery black stickers I found just to put the word spices on the bottom of the frame. So I'm using a Sharpie to write the name of spices that I use most often right on top. Now it's time to fill up the jars. I'm going to put up the frame first where I want it, and then I can just stick the jars right on the fridge inside the frame. I love having these right at my fingertips instead of having to dig through a cabinet.
To begin, I purchased a 36 by 48 piece of acrylic from Home Depot. To prep the piece, I covered all 4 corners with 2 layers of painter tape, measured up and over 1.5 inches, and marked. I then used a regular drill bit to slowly drill the hole into the acrylic, making sure not to crack it. This will come in handy later. Making a rectangle, I measured up from the bottom 2.5 inches and marked it. 6.5 inches from each side and down 8.5 inches from the top. I used painter's tape to mark these measurements. Then, measuring 5-inch strips, I marked and taped off vertical lines and repeated this step for the horizontal lines. The tape I used to make these is called charting tape, but you can use any color tape that matches your decor. After all the lines were marked, I cut the excess tape off with an X-Acto knife and removed the painter's tape. I then went outside to give my sign standoffs a coat of gold spray paint to match the rest of my calendar. While these were drying, I secured my vinyl letters to mark the days of the week to the top of my calendar. I made these with my Cricut, but you could cut your own or get a set of stickers from the craft store to spell out the days of the week. Now it's time to hang. Having a partner comes in handy to hold the calendar up to make sure it's level and then mark the corners where you drilled. The standoffs I ordered came with anchors and screws, so I first secured the drywall anchors to the wall, and then I drilled in the base of the standoff. Then we lifted the calendar and slid the pre-drilled holes onto the screws and secured them with the stoppers. I am thrilled with how this calendar turned out. It's a chic way to plan out the week or the month without being a total eyesore.
Take an X-Acto knife and remove the lid flaps. Take hemp rope and a hot glue gun to begin wrapping the rope around the box. Take twine and begin gluing it to the perimeter of the bottom of the box. Take balsa wood oval or circle shapes and paint them with black paint. Print words to be displayed on the side of the box. Cut them out and use pencil to cover the back of the paper. Then trace the font on the balsa wood. Use a chalkboard pen or a white paint pen to cover the pencil traced font. Use a hot glue gun to attach the labels to the side of the box. There you have it, an inexpensive way to create your own pantry storage for your home for less than $10.
Step number 1, have this folk art acrylic craft paint. I'm using a dry brush, but I'm going to go in with my brush and we're just going to work on coating the basket. So we have the gray. Now we're going to go in with folk art honeycomb. And I'm just going to take my palette. So we're going to give this a couple moments to dry, and then we're going to take some fun farmhouse style ribbon to attach it to our baskets.
There you have it. Here is the after of my Pottery Barn hack driftwood aged baskets that I made for a fraction of what you would pay retail.
Begin by emptying out your entire pantry. Your counters should look like this. Clean and measure your space. I'll be using a few different organizers like clear plastic bins, wicker baskets, turntables, and airtight containers. How much better does this look? Everything makes sense for my home and my lifestyle, and it's super easy to find.
Grab some inexpensive tension rods. Take 2 tension rods and install them horizontally in your closet. The front rod should be placed about a ½ inch lower than the back rod. This will give your shoes a slight angle forward without them falling off. You can organize boots as well. Place the tension rods vertically to keep boots upright and organized. Your boots can't help but stand at attention. Is the space under your kitchen sink a jumble of cleaning bottles? Clear out the space and install 1 larger sized tension rod horizontally and in front of any sink pipes. Hang all of your cleaning spray bottles from the rod. You'll be amazed at how much added space you now have. In any kitchen cupboard, install a series of 2 tension rods vertically and back to back to create the perfect system for storing baking sheets and muffin pans.
I've got an eyesore in the front of my house, and it's my garbage can. I've got an inexpensive idea, and it happens to use pallets. I want to make sure that they're just wide enough for the garbage can to go in and out without rubbing. The next step is I got to cut some railings, actually. I'm going to measure about 7.5 inches down from the top. This is going to give me some good markings that I need to put each one on each side of the pallets. And I'm going to cut the less desirable pallet that's going to go on top. When I put it on top, then I'm just secure it with some screws. I grabbed some old fence pallets that I had that were redwood, and I'm going to go ahead and just brad nail these on the top. I am also going to put it on the side. That way it looks more like a little bit of a door frame or anything when I put it on. Once it's all put together, then I can slide my garbage can in. I think it turned out really nice.
Start by measuring your space. We're using waterproof crib mattresses, so you'll build your couch around the crib mattress measurements. Cut the pallets using a circular saw. Be sure to watch out for nails. Cut all the way across, then flip over and cut the other side. After you've cut all the pallets, start stacking. We used a total of 12 pallets, cut to fit for our outdoor couch. Use a nail gun to attach painted plywood fronts and trim board. This part's a lot easier if you have a second set of hands. Now that the couch is assembled, you can add the crib mattresses. Ours were shipped covered in plastic, so we left that on to make them extra waterproof. Cover the mattresses with fitted sheets. These are inexpensive and easy to throw in the washing machine. Lastly, decorate with throw pillows and enjoy with your favorite furry friend.
Seeing some wood pallets gave me an idea. The first thing I did was mark a line with a Sharpie where the back of the bench and the seat part would connect. I measured the width of the boards and cut my materials at least twice as wide. I created tufted channels by laying down the mattress topper with the smooth side up toward me, then lay the batting on top of that. I only went down to the Sharpie line that I drew as my guide so that I wouldn't have padding in that area. I cut the mattress topper back in this area so that it would fit around a little bit better. Once you have those in place, add your material over top and you can start to see how it's going to look. I secured the fabric at the bottom where my Sharpie drawn line was. I lifted my pallet and started securing things in the back. At the top, I secured the fabric as well. Now, for the bench. I cut my second pallet in half lengthwise. Then I cut the mattress topper, batting, and fabric to size. I secured everything in place and then flipped it over to work on the bottom. I chose to reinforce the sides of my bench with 1x4s on both sides. For the legs, I just used leftover wood, joined them together, and then secured them to the bench. Now it was time to put it together. Once the bench and backing were secured, I could start working on finishing the top. To do this, I laid a piece of fabric, pretty side down, over the top. Then I attached the tack strip along the top, making sure to staple it onto the edge of the wood. I added a 1x4 along the bottom of the bench. Again, I added mattress topper and secured that in place. Then I added the fabric and tack strip along the top. I wrapped the fabric along to the side and secured it in place. This was a fun challenge to take on. It was sturdy, the exact height we wanted, and at a price that fit the budget.
I grabbed a free pallet for this genius garden hack. I used a hammer to remove some of the boards carefully. I left the nails in the boards so that I could use them again. I made 3 rows with 3 boards tight together on the bottom row, 2 boards together in the middle, and 2 boards near the top. A reciprocating saw to cut the extra off. I flipped the pallet over and followed the same pattern with 3 boards together on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the top. I cut more 1x4s to fill in the bottom of each section and secured it with 3 nails on the front, and I hammered in 3 nails on the back side. I gave the front a quick sand. Next, I filled each section with soil and planted my favorite herbs. I used my Cricut to print stencils to paint labels for each section. When applying the stencil, I first sealed it with Mod Podge, and then I let it dry before painting with acrylic paint. Once the paint was near dry, I removed the vinyl and did some touch-ups with my black acrylic paint pen. And now I have the most beautiful herb garden that can also be hung on the wall.
First thing I'm going to do is I took a spare rug that I had, so I'm just going to unroll this. I've gotten a couple of these pallets. I'm going to put these on my rug. I'm just going to lay these down right here. And then I'm going to get started setting up for our picnic. My backyard goes downhill a little bit, so I've taken a couple of containers because I want these to be even so that people can dine on them. And one right here. So I have these great hard slate placemats. These will be for my actual place settings. The next thing I'm going to do is dress these up. So I'm going to use these kind of rather bohemian looking blue placemats. I'm just going to use these reed wrapped glasses. I'm going to use my pretty Lenox plates, these wooden handled flatware. When I'm going really casual, all I want to do with my cloth napkins is gather them in the middle and just like so, and just tie them in a knot. And I'm just going to toss those right in the middle of each one of my plates. So I just took battery lights like so and fed them right down inside my jars. Just let the wire go right down underneath the pallet. I have my jars all lit up and all the way down the middle of our table, and I just went to my closet and grabbed a couple of scarves, and I'm just gonna kind of weave those in between my jars. So I am going to add all kinds of blue cushions, but I wanted to show you how easy and how fun it is. If you have a source, if you can find a couple of pallets, even if you can just borrow them, to put together this kind of a fun backyard pallet picnic.
We're going to grab us an old pallet. We need to cut a section of the pallet out. Go ahead and separate it, but don't throw it away. We'll need those boards. Take the section that we cut, and we need to find the middle. That is how we're going to get our 2 ends perfectly aligned. Take that part that we cut off earlier and separate it and remove some of the boards with the nails in them. Just go ahead and grab a hammer, and you're just going to start tapping on the back side of the nail. You're going to pull that nail right out, and we're going to place them across the top of the 2 pieces we cut. Then I used a nail gun just to put it in place. This thing is going to be so strong, it doesn't take much to hold it together. Take a little bit extra, the boards that we have left over, and we're going to build a little bit of a shelf. We're not going to secure it because it's time to show you this final project. This is great for outdoor. It looks rustic, and it's great for cooking s'mores and making some hot chocolate, especially with that sliding shelf. Last week I walked out of my office and there they were right in the hallway. Some really good pallets. First thing I did was lay it down and start cutting around the edges. On the middle section, just take a crowbar, hammer it in, and you're going to pull it up. Don't pull too hard. You want to do it from both sides. Now all you got to do is take out the nails. They're easy to do. Just lay it on a table, tap on one side, use the bar on the other, and pull it out. Once you get all of your nails pulled, you're going to have a nice big pile of wood to use. Next step is to grab some crates from Michael's. I'm going to take 2 of these and glue them together, and then use clamps to hold them together while the glue dries. Once you get your 2 pairs, you're going to space them apart. Take 3 of your boards from the pallet, and we're going to use those to hold our 2 pairs of crates together. Now I'm going to take that pallet wood and I'm going to square up the ends. These are going to be the legs. And then I will take the front, the same length, and put it there, glue and nail. Now, the support boards for the pallet, I'm going to screw those in the back. Now it's time for more glue. Again, I'm going to use pallet wood. On the pallet boards, I cut 1 piece, just enough to have a little bit of an overhang, and then I put a little piece in between. Once I get it all glued down, I just took those brad nails and put them into place. Now it's time to work on the back. Wanted to make sure it wasn't too tall, but I took some of that pallet wood and nailed it into the sides. It's time to put some hanging hooks on. Just screw them right into the boards. Now, let's put this thing in place. And I went to Dollar Tree and grabbed a bunch of items for only $1. This is our potting board right here. It just turned out great. And all of this stuff I bought from Dollar Tree. We need a skinny roll of tape. And we also need some clear Elmer's glue. And our template for today is going to be an outside window. We got to put some of that tape on the window. Now, you can go ahead and take the tape and mask it to the grid that's already on the window, or you can just go random like I'm doing it. But the next step to this is we got to grab that Elmer's glue. Once we get some paint in there, all you got to do is just go back and forth with it, and it shakes up really nice. Next, move on to your second color. These are our 4 colors we're going to go with. Now, because it's on the Elmer's glue, it's actually non-toxic, and I used a foam brush to transfer it to the window. It's going to take multiple coats, but the glue and the paint dries really fast. You can actually put a coat on within an hour after you put it on. Once it dries overnight, you're going to take a knife and very gently, we don't want to scratch the window. If you try to pull the tape with it out using the knife, it may pull the glue off. Just go ahead and start pulling the tape off. It's another thing. When you're done with this and you want to change it or just take it off later, it peels right off. That's our final project. In the afternoon, when the sun hits the window, it just glows inside the room and gives it multiple colors.
We are going to make some beautiful home decor items using clear Elmer's glue. Up first, we are going to fill this vase with the clear glue. Then we're going to add in some clear and white decorative pebbles. Now I'm going to grab some faux flowers. Now I'm just going to stick these into that glue. Once you've got them arranged just right, set this aside and let it dry. Now you have a permanent floral arrangement that looks like it has these water and stones in the bottom of it. This is going to look great in your home. Next up, we are going to grab a couple glass mason jars. So you're going to grab a small dish and you're going to fill it with clear glue and a little bit of water. I used about 2 tablespoons of glue and about 1 tablespoon of water. Then I'm going to drop in a little bit of food coloring. Then stir it up until it's mixed really well. Grab your mason jar, make sure it's nice and clean. Pour that dark blue mixture into the jar and swirl it around so it covers everything. Once you've swirled it all around, you can dump the excess back into the original container. Now we want to let this drip for a little bit. Let it drip for about 10 minutes. Take a paper towel, wipe off any excess drips that are around the rim of the jar. Then place this upside down on a piece of parchment paper. Pop it in your oven at 175 for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, take it out, turn it right side up, and let it cool completely. These jars make great decor around your home. Just remember, they're not vases. You can't fill them with water, but you can definitely display some dried flowers in them. I'm going to take the piece of glass out, and I'm going to draw a grid of squares and rectangles with black puffy paint. When that's done, I want to let that dry completely. So I'm going to use a little bit of clear glue and a few drops of paint. So on that piece of glass where we added the puffy paint, when it's completely dry, I'm just going to use a popsicle stick and transfer some of those beautiful blue colors onto the glass. But a little goes a long way because you don't want this to run over the black line. Once everything is done, you can grab a toothpick and go back and just pop any of those bubbles that are in there. Then set this aside and just let it be. Once it's dry, pop that glass back in the frame, set it up by a window, and you have a beautiful piece of faux stained glass for your home.
The carpet in my office needed to be replaced, but it just wasn't in the budget. But torn and crumpled paper was. Mixing equal parts of glue and water, I made the paste for the floor. Using a wide paintbrush, I applied the glue to the floor, making sure I got underneath the baseboards. Then I laid down the paper and brushed the glue on top. I continued to apply the glue to the floor, then the torn paper, and then more glue over top of the torn paper.
I switched out my brush for a foam roller to cover larger areas, but I kept the brush to use underneath the baseboard. After the glue dried, I applied stain to the floor using a foam roller. After the stain dried, I applied coat after coat of polyurethane. Using a lamb's wool applicator made this process so easy. I really love this floor, can you tell? I hope this inspires you to tackle this very easy project.
Quick trip to my local Dollarama. Separate the layers. Cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water. Paint it onto the side of the glass jar. Then lay down the paper nap and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. I have taken a battery-operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar. And here are my finished chinoiserie jars. Don't they look great? I made a trip to my local dollar store. Taking a terracotta pot, I draw a very random shape. Taking the clear glue, I pour some onto the side of the pot, picking up some of the blue gravel and pat it down. I then put some of the silver glitter glue around the edge, and here is my geode terracotta pot. So I put 2 spoons of cornstarch and 2 spoons of Elmer's glue, and that's what we're looking for. I'm going to use this really lovely mandala stencil. Going very carefully, I'm now going to apply it. The whole stencil is covered, and now for the moment of truth. Very, very, very carefully lift this off. This is the next day now. I left it overnight to dry. Also sanded it very lightly. Okay, just going to give it 1 coat. I'm going to leave that to dry now. Just look how subtle this little design is on this tabletop. And all that with cornstarch and glue. It's really amazing.
So we're going to start with this cellophane piece here. So I'm going to make the line here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Just put a clear dot, or you could run a clear line. And next, I'm going to go ahead and place the cellophane onto the glue and glass. So I'll go ahead and continue putting the glue and the cellophane up on all the windows. Here it is, all finished, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
I took the table apart, separating the glass from the metal ring. Laid the glass on top of the picture. I mixed 2 parts white glue to 1 part black craft paint. I outlined the sun. And once the lines had dried, I cleaned up any lines that were too thick by cutting them away using a utility knife. I painted the background using a 1-inch wide brush. I added designs to each panel. I gave the paint 2 coats of spray sealant. I used a medium grit sanding sponge. I painted the metal bright blue. The table looks great in our outside space, and friends can't believe that I painted it.
I'm going to stick these grasses and weeds to this glass. Cut off these extra bits on the bottom. Now I'm going to stick the tissue paper to the vase. I'm going to use a glue stick and then just rolling it, pulling it tight on this side, some more glue down, and gently stick that in place too. I'm going to go around and just trim and just see how pretty these are. Really, really simple project to do.
Grab a Dollar Tree solar light and one of those tall glass vases. Put the base of the solar light into the vase and then fill around it with some decorative stones. Add the top and use these on an outdoor table to add some soft lighting. Remove the top of a solar light and wrap some floral wire around it to create a swing. Place this inside a paper lantern and use these in your outdoor space. Grab a few small clay pots. They can even have the soil in them. Place a solar light into the middle and fill around it with stones to hold it in place. You can use these small pots to line a walkway. Grab a larger planter, place a few solar lights in it, and then fill around it with rocks. It's a great way to add light to a corner where solar lights don't naturally stick into the ground. So I picked up a couple of these dollar store solar lights, and I'm going to take them apart. I just need that kind of crystal plastic part and the top. So I'm going to cover the light bulb on the bottom, and then I'm going to cover the solar panel on top, and then use a craft knife to cut around it so you get perfectly straight lines. This is a 7-inch basic embroidery hoop. So I'm going to untwist this screw and put that aside, and then both pieces of the hoop plus that light need to be spray painted. I'm taking them outside and I am adding a couple coats of a matte black spray paint. Make sure they're fully dry to the touch, and now we can assemble. So first we want to remove the painter's tape so that these solar lights work. On the clear plastic part, there are 2 little clips that help attach it to the top. And I'm just going to take some floral wire and wrap it around each one of those clips. Wrap it nice and tight so it hugs the plastic closely. And then I'm able to screw the black part back on top, and the wire is still going to hang out either side. I picked this chain up at the craft store. It is actually in the jewelry section. I'm going to thread the chain through the screw and tighten it about halfway. The solar light is going to hang from the inside hoop. So I'm just going to use my floral wire and wrap it around that hoop. I want to make sure it's centered so that when I'm holding it up, the light hangs right in the middle. Now I can put this middle hoop, the smaller hoop, back inside the larger one. Now once everything's in place, I can tighten this screw and it should hold together really well with tension. I made a couple of these dollar store solar light pendants to hang on my deck.
I'm going to grab me some solar lights. Next, head over to the hardware store. I'm going to grab me about 100 feet of nylon rope. First thing I got to do is blow up this dollar beach ball. Then I got to get out some Portland cement. Make sure it's not concrete, but cement. You want it actually really thin because we need to coat that rope. Now, on that beach ball, just start laying that rope. You're just going to start roping it all the way around. Once you get to the end, what you're going to do is tuck that last bit in underneath the rope. It's going to hold it in place. Then what we can do is move on to possibly adding a little bit more cement. Make sure you cover all that rope. We want it to stiffen up as best we can. Let it sit for a couple hours once we get it covered. Once it's covered, take a knife and just puncture the beach ball. Once we get it all the air out, just go ahead and pull it through one of the bigger openings between the ropes. Now, I want to clean it up. Took a little bit of a plastic fork and just clean up the edges. Don't want anything flaking off. Take a squirt bottle and start squirting all the string, and you're just going to powder it with the cement. Just keep doing that all over. What this does is make it thicker and strengthen it up. We're going to grab that dollar light again. Take out the bottom part. You're going to turn it around, put it in, and that's what's going to stick into the ground. Go ahead and put it right into the ground, right in the area you want to put it. And then you're going to take your string orb and you're going to put it right over the light, right in the middle, and lay it on down. Once it's in place, it just looks really good, just sitting there. It's waterproof because it's on the nylon rope and it's made out of cement. But once night comes, look at it light up. It is amazing to see from your yard and from the street.
We're going to start by cutting the 4x4 down 28 inches. Next, we're going to take the post cap out of the box and prep it for painting. Decided to use some spray paint on them to get the look that I was going for. So I'm covering up the solar panel, and then I'm covering up the glass frame around the light. Next, using a hacksaw, we're going to cut down the angled bar into 4 pieces, 24-inch pieces. You want to use a hacksaw with multiple tiny teeth because it makes the cutting process a lot easier. With the angled bars cut, I'm setting up this spray shelter so that I can spray paint the angled bars as well as the post cap. I'm painting the 4x4 post with an exterior solid base paint by Behr called Catalina Coast. This is where you're going to glue the angled bars. You want to make sure to leave that 1/2 inch from the top of the post. This will ensure that the post cap will lay flat on the surface. With the spray paint dry, I was then able to use a 5-in-1 tool and remove the painter's tape and place the post cap at the top of the pole. With my solar post complete, I dug a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep so that I can place my posts in the ground. And I also used some quick setting concrete around the pole so that they would be nice and sturdy. I love the way this turned out. This completely transformed my walkway.
Here are a few ways you can add ambiance to your yard by using solar lights. This taper candle holder I found at a thrift store. I added silicone to each holder spot and then added the top of a solar light to each one. I let it dry for 24 hours and it's ready to go outside. To make some light up address numbers for your home, using a stencil or freehand, you can paint or use a Sharpie to draw on your numbers. Add some glass rocks or any decoration inside you like. Add some water as it will amplify the light reflection. Pull your solar light apart and you only need the top piece. Place that inside the lid of the mason jar and screw the lids back on. To make a terracotta pot lighthouse, you'll need 3 different size terracotta pots. This is so they'll stack easily. Start by painting your terracotta pots whatever color you like. Pull the solar light apart and cut the little stem off the solar light to make it flat. Add silicone to the base of the solar light and put it on the top of the terracotta pots for your light. Using some more paint or Sharpies, draw on your windows or any other decorations you'd like. Once it's dry, you're all set to go. You can put it outside and enjoy it.
To begin this project, choose your solar light set. Next, using 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch board, measure and cut 8 8-inch sections. Using a rad nailer, I secured these together, creating a square, but if you don't have access to this tool, you can always use a screw. Next, decide how long you want your light to be. We chose to use a 1 by 2 by 30 inch board. After sanding, find the middle of the board and mark off 5 points. We spaced ours 5 inches apart. Using a paddle bit, drill through the center of the board. After finding the center on the side piece and the length board, line them up and then secure. Once everything is square, measure your final 4 boards to make a hollow rectangle. Cut and secure these as you did the side squares. Finally, attach 2 eye hooks to either side to use for hanging. After my eye hooks were secure, I attached 3 feet of black chain link to each side of my chandelier. You can leave this raw wood and coat with a polyurethane to protect it from the outdoors, but I chose to use a satin black spray paint. Once my spray paint was dry, it was time to secure my solar lights. This took a little force, but warming up the plastic in the sun can make the tube more pliable. I chose to cut down my tubes, but this is of course personal preference. I have a pergola out back where I hung my new chandelier from 2 screw hooks. I absolutely love the new ambiance it creates, not only at nighttime, but it also adds a designer touch to my outdoor space.
Don't throw that old yoga mat away. Do this instead. Cut a larger piece of yoga mat and place it on your floor. Use it as a mat for your pet. Grab a little yoga mat scrap and cut it. Fold it in half and hot glue the entire thing closed. Make a hole on one end of this little piece. Put a keychain through that hole. This little piece will help your keys float when in water. Cut a piece of yoga mat and wrap it around a travel mug to know what size you need. Place 2 Velcro dots on either end so that it will wrap around your travel mug and close. This will protect your hands from the heat. Grab a keyboard, measure the length and width that you need, cut that piece out, and then hot glue the entire piece closed. Place it on the edge of your keyboard on your desk and you have a wrist rest. Grab your tablet, place it on the end of a yoga mat. Flip it over so you know exactly how long you need that piece to be. And then cut that piece out. Fold the piece in half so that the fold is on one side and glue the sides on either side of the fold. There will still be an opening at the top and this is where you can slide your tablet in and out of the case. Now you have a carrying case. Cut a larger piece of yoga mat and fold it into thirds. Hot glue the entire thing closed. Place it outside on the ground to protect your knees while gardening. Grab a picture frame, measure the back side onto a piece of yoga mat, and cut it to size. Place it on top of the backing, put it back into the picture frame, and close it. Place it somewhere in your home and use push pins and notes, and you've got yourself a mini bulletin board.
Grab a coordinating kitchen towel and pot holder. Fold the towel and lay it out flat, and place the pot holder right in the center. Pin or clip it in place. Then head over to the sewing machine and sew it straight down the middle. Now grab a button and sew that onto the pot holder. This cute towel will now hook onto the handle of your stove or your dishwasher. It looks great and it's functional. Sew on a piece of elastic, creating 2 loops. Flip the pot holder over and use some fabric glue to attach a long piece of ribbon. Slide your toothbrush and toothpaste into the elastic, fold it in half, and tie the pouch together with the ribbon. Toss this in your bag and you're ready to go. Grab a pot holder and some quick dry fabric glue, fold it in half and glue it on just 2 of the sides. Hold it in place until the glue is completely dry. This will slip right over the handle of the pan and you can pick it up and protect your hands.
So here's the big secret. Every pool noodle has a hole in it. So I'm gonna stick the pool noodle onto the faucet like this. Next, I take the other end of the pool noodle and I hold it down so that it aims in the center of the bucket. I turn the water on slowly and I just wait to fill the bucket to the level I want. Now, how easy is this? Now I'm ready to get mopping. Now, a lot of people have trouble with drafts coming in under doors. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take a pool noodle and I'm gonna measure my door. What I picked up was a pillowcase from the dollar store. I'm gonna take this pool noodle, stick it inside. I'm gonna lay it back down on the table so it's nice and flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just wind it. So I'm gonna put a little dab of hot glue here, and then I'm just gonna run this along the edge. So this end is open because this is the top of the pillowcase. So all I'm gonna do is stick the pillowcase into the hole. Velcro adhesive. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel off the adhesive and I'm gonna place it. Now I have peeled the backing off and I'm going to stick it to the door. Here it is on the door and I can still open and close the door with ease. So what I've got here is a pool noodle from an old project that's already cut. And then what I need to do from here is just take a pen or a pencil or marker and just kind of mark where this spot is. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a slit into about half of the pool noodle. Next, I'm gonna flip the noodle over and I've got these great little picture holder strips and you're gonna wanna put it on the back side of where each of these are. So I start by peeling the backing off. And now I stick and press it on the wall and I need to wait 30 seconds at minimum. I just open the pool noodle like so and I stick my broom handle inside. Here they are all hung up and I'm just absolutely thrilled with how easy this was and how it turned out.
Place sponges in the bottom of your refrigerator baskets to keep your fruits and vegetables fresh and help them last longer. The sponges will soak up any unwanted water or other moisture. Wrap a sponge in 2 different places around the handle and hold it in place with a rubber band. Place your hands on the sponges and begin shoveling, raking, or sweeping. It'll protect your hands from getting blisters. Place the sponge between the wall and the hammer. Pull the nail out while protecting the wall with your sponge from the metal of the hammer. In a container, add a half a cup of water and a half a cup of fabric softener. Mix together and add your sponges. Let them sit for a while to soak up the mixture. To use them, squeeze out the extra fabric softener back into the container. Toss the sponge in the dryer with your wet clothes and turn the dryer on. When your load is dry, pull out your sponge and put it back in the fabric softener mixture because they're reusable.
Grab a toilet paper roll, cut a slit down the toilet paper roll, tape 2 of them together, slide them onto a hanger, and slide your pants over the top of the cardboard. This will stop your pants from getting creases in them. Take a cord, clip it into a pants hanger, wind it around the hanger, and clip the other end into the other clip of the pants hanger. Now you have some easy cord organization. Place a rubber band on each side of the hanger. Place your garments onto the hanger. This will keep anything from slipping off the edges of your hangers. Grab a couple of old business cards. Fold them in half. Place one end over the top of the pants and clip that into a pants hanger. Now you can hang your pants with ease and it will not leave any crease marks. If you have wire hangers, grab 2 clothespins, clip them onto the wire hanger, and then clip your pants onto the hangers. This will prevent creases as well. Now, if you're short on storage space in your closet, all you need is a chain. Place one end of the chain onto your hanger in your first outfit. A couple lengths down, place the second hanger with the next shirt or outfit. This hangs them all vertically, saving you space in your closet as well as keeps it nice and flat. Grab a hanger and a package of shower curtain rings. Place all of the shower curtain rings onto the hanger, or as many as you need. Grab your necklaces and place them onto the shower curtain rings. 1 item per shower curtain ring. This keeps your jewelry hanging nicely and it makes it easy to grab when you're getting dressed. Grab your scarves and slide them through the rings. This will keep your scarves nice and organized, works well for decorative scarves and winter scarves. Grab your baseball caps and focus on the back side of the cap where there is a loop. This hangs them sideways into your closet and is a huge space saver.
Take 2 wire cabinet shelves and 2 plastic bins. Bend the legs of the shelves towards the center. Place storage container lids in the grooves. Now you have the perfect plastic storage container organization. Take 2 wire shower caddies and weave them together. Use zip ties, cut the zip tie tails. Place shower caddies. Now you have the perfect storage for cooking pans, baking sheets.
Let's start with that mess of plastic bags. Lay it out flat, fold it in half, then in half again. Fold it up into triangles. I'm going to take the handles and tuck them into the little pocket of the triangle. Now that same amount of bags fits in that container. To fold a larger reusable bag, lay it out flat and fold it into thirds. Fold the bottom up, tuck the handles in. Now you're able to store these bags vertically. Lay out your kitchen towel, fold it in half again. Fold it into thirds, right into the pocket you created. It's not going to become unfolded. Fold a bag of chips, bringing each corner together on a diagonal. Flip the bag around and fold it down 3 or 4 times. Fold over the corners. It's not gonna leak. Start by tucking in the 2 side pieces. Squeeze the sides together and tuck that final piece, making it line up really nicely in your pantry.
Head over to Dollar Tree, start by placing your tomato cage upside down on your yard, and tape the prongs together so they make a nice point. Grab your light strand, start at the top, wind the light strand around and around the tomato cage until you reach the bottom. Grab your rectangle tablecloth, spread it all out, and wrap this around the tomato cage. Cut off the excess. Grab your round tablecloth, fold it up like a cone, and cut off the extra from the bottom. Lay the circle tablecloth out onto the ground. Place the tomato cage on top of the circle tablecloth. Place your solar panel out so it gets plenty of sunlight. You've now created a giant witch hat, which lights up at night. You're going to need some plastic tablecloth, pumpkin pails, and some tomato cages, and some lights. I'm going to start by placing the tomato cage upside down. With the part that sticks into the ground, I'm going to pull them all in together. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and place it upside down onto all of the prongs. Next, I'm going to take my lights and I'm going to use some painter's tape so that I can hold this in place at the top. But I'm going to wrap the lights around. Next, I'll be using a round plastic tablecloth from Dollar Tree. So now I need to make some eyes, and I'm going to be using some gaffer's tape here, and I've made a template out of a piece of paper. Here are all 3 ghosts lined up for the trick-or-treaters. You are going to need a tomato cage. So I have the tomato cage upside down, and then I have a standard plastic pumpkin pail, and I'm going to go ahead and tip it upside down and slide it over. And what I've got now is just a regular yard size garbage bag. Slide it over the top. I've just cut a piece of twine. I'm just going to take this piece of twine and I'm going to go around. What I'm going to use is another pumpkin bucket for the head. I'm going to go ahead and leave it mysterious and blank. Go ahead and add a little hot glue. So I got one of these sparkly little lights. I'm going to go ahead and put that inside. Next, of course, she needs a witch hat. And I've got these old bags. I'm going to go ahead and stick them inside. Place this right on top of her head. I'm going to use one more garbage bag to make their hands hold together. So I've cut the garbage bag into a long strip. I'm going to take it in the center. I'm going to go ahead and make a knot. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to it, and then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Here they are all on display, and I'm so excited with how they turned out. You're going to need 2 laundry baskets. If you can't find black laundry baskets, you can paint them, and I'll be using Rust-Oleum black spray paint. Next, you're going to need a skeleton and place them inside. And we're going to take the other basket and place it on top. For this guy, what I've decided to use is hot glue. So I purchased some Halloween chain garland that we're going to use to help hang him. So I'm going to slide it onto a slat and hook it on like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So for this next version, you're going to need 2 dollar store trash cans and a skeleton from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to cut her little stretchy cord here. So I'm going to take the strings and I'm going to thread them up through the trash can. So I'm going to pull her up straight like this. Next, I'm going to make a little knot, and this will cause her to hang up straight. And I'm going to place the 2 trash cans on top of each other. I'll be using black paracord to adhere her together. Now, to hang her, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to loop it down through one of the holes and then work my way up through another hole. And then once I get it up, I'm going to just give it some extra length for hanging. And now I've created a way to hang it. Here they are hanging in our yard, and I'm so thrilled with how they turned out.
If you have any Christmas ornaments, this is the time they're going to come in really handy. So I've taken some of these ornaments and I'm giving them a light coat of white flat spray paint. And I picked up this cauldron that sits on a base and all of these fun colored ornaments. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut a piece of cardboard that will go right around here. I'm going to use some low temp glue and then I'm going to glue that so that it will not move around. I happen to have this cardboard box and I'm going to set that down in there. I have this Dollar Tree pumpkin. What I'm going to do is just break this apart because I want to just fill in a little space. So you're just going to glue this to the sides of your cauldron and then you're going to glue it to the ornaments to each other. I got these great little battery operated spider lights. And what I'm going to do is just tuck them down in between our bubbles, which are ornaments. I have this heavy duty stick on Velcro and I'm going to stick it right on the back. So here is my cord coming down. I put the other piece of the Velcro. So I'm going to be able to stick this right up here and I will still be able to push the button to change the settings. I look forward to sharing this on my table at my Halloween party. So I found a container that would fit right down inside. When I have my plaster of Paris completely stirred, I can go ahead and stick into it my piece of PVC. About 15 minutes, it is ready to go. Oh, I got a collection of skulls from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to give these a coat of this chalky paint. I'm going to take each one and cut an X, one in the top of the head and then one down here. All right, I have my urn and I have my PVC post in the plaster of Paris. And I'm going to set this right down inside. So I'm just going to stick a couple pieces of styrofoam in there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and going to push these in just a little bit and slide them right down over and all the way down. And we're just going to feed our skulls right onto that PVC post. This skull, I have only cut a hole in the bottom. It's going to go right over it and get secured right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue right there to secure these together. I'm just going to add Spanish moss to give it that real creepy feel. And we're going to wrap it around and tuck it in to give that real creepy feeling. And now right in by that styrofoam, I'm going to stick some hands. And now our decoration is all ready. And here is our skull topiary. Make sure that you paint those skulls with a spray polyurethane so that the paint doesn't wash off.
Who's ready for Halloween? We're going to take just a basic little black cauldron and we're going to mix some chalk paint, and I mixed it with some baking soda. We're going to grab some potting soil and put it on top of the wet paint, pat it in there, and we're going to pat some more paint on there. And we're going to just keep doing this all the way around the pot. Then we're going to grab some Christmas ornaments. I already took the little tops off of them, grabbed some more paint, and I just painted that. And then I started adding in all my ornaments. So I just kept adding. Now I added some little twinkle lights. I added some skulls. And it looks like an old stone cauldron that you kind of dug up somewhere.
Next time you're at the garden center, make sure you grab a tomato cage. I took the prongs of the tomato cage and I attached them together at the end using a zip tie. Then I'm going to take some greenery and I'm going to begin wrapping it around with zip ties, making sure that it holds in place. I'm going to work on some fairy lights here around as well. These are battery operated. And then I'm going to take a old rusty planter that I have that needs a little bit of a makeover. So I'm just going to spray it with some primer. And then as well, I'm going to spray it with a nice almond color spray paint. Fill it with rocks to add some weight. And then I'm going to put my tomato cage upside down. And here I have a beautiful topiary for my front porch. And at night, when the fairy lights turn on, they're on a timer, they light up, and I add some beautiful ambiance.
I'm using a galvanized pail that I got from Walmart, some brown chalk paint from Folk Art, and then from there I'm applying some white paint. So I'm just going to let this dry. I'm going to be taking 3 of these cute little pumpkins that I got from Dollar Tree, white acrylic paint. So for this next step, I'm sawing off the stems of my styrofoam pumpkins. I am going to be sawing through my pumpkins, and I'm actually taking some Mod Podge and I'm covering my entire pumpkin and then applying my fabric. And then we're going to let it dry. I'm going to be taking my fabric and I'm actually going to be applying it to a paper towel holder that I got from Dollar Tree. And I am going to be placing the paper towel holder on top of it. And the slits that I had cut into my pumpkins before, I'm just using those as kind of a guide so that I can cut through the fabric. And I'm going to be stacking my pumpkins on top of the paper towel holder through the slit. And then I'm applying the moss with hot glue. I had a branch from my backyard, and then I used hot glue to apply it to the top pumpkin. I hope this inspired you to create your own pumpkin Dollar Tree topiary for your home.
I have one of those foam crafting pumpkins, and I want to make a hole in the top of this one and also in the bottom. Smaller pumpkin, and I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom. I have my drill and I have a longer drill bit on it, and I'm gonna just drill some holes around each of the pumpkins. And I'm just taking a small amount of brown paint and I'm just following the ridges of the pumpkin. I'm taking a small string of Christmas lights. I'm gonna pop some in there, and then I'm just gonna put the whole thing into the top of the middle pumpkin and run it out the bottom. Now I'm gonna glue the pumpkins together. And now I'm gonna add a stem. I cut some bittersweet vine from my backyard, and I'm just gonna wrap it around the sections of the pumpkins. And here's our little pumpkin topiaries at night.
I wanted to cut off the corners of this big hunk of styrofoam, but I'm going to wedge this all the way down. We're gonna start with some fresh plants. Then back here, I picked a couple of mums, and I had some scraps of towel rods, some beautiful silk leaves, and push these down in the middle of my styrofoam here. I have things like pumpkins that we're gonna add. So I just picked up things that I thought were nice for fall and nice color, but would raise up above. And I had one of these inexpensive chain leaf garlands left, so I'm just going to cut it apart and add some of these. Here is my beautiful urn, and it just adds so much down here at the bottom of my steps.
Time to break out of jail. That is, the Walmart ball jail. You also need some green reindeer moss. Start by spray painting the Walmart ball with moss green spray paint. Separate the large pieces and stretch out any chunks that are thick. With a can of general spray adhesive, spritz a small portion of the ball with the adhesive. Take a small patch of green moss and press it onto the ball in the sticky area. Press and hold for a few seconds to make sure it sticks. Continue to spray the ball and attach the green moss to the outside. Once you cover the entire ball with spray adhesive and moss, give the entire moss-covered ball an overall coat of the spray adhesive. Style it in a woven basket for a textured boho look. Place in a low, colored glass bowl for a more modern look. And for a traditional look, a large ceramic pot is perfect for this moss-covered ball.
What I'm going to do is I took a scrap of styrofoam and fit it down in here, and I wedged it really tight. And now I am going to set this right on top. Now I cut some little wedges of styrofoam, and I'm just going to tuck them right in here. You're going to want to head over to the Dollar Tree and pick up one of these garlands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and go around my cone here, pin the garland to the cone. So I'm just going to start. I've got some pretty fall silk flowers, and I am just going to go ahead and poke this right into my foam tree. Now, if you don't have one of these fancy pick machines, one of the alternatives is wood wired sticks, okay? They look like this, and you buy them in a bunch. What you do is you put the wood wired stick up next to your stem, and you take this wire and you wrap the wire around the stem really tightly and around the green stick. At the end, you must wrap it just around the stick at least a couple of times, and then that won't come off. See, I can stick this right in. Here is a leaf that has just a stem that's not firm enough to stick into our styrofoam. We only need a little bit of this skewer. And we're going to put that stick right up next to the leaf, and then we're going to take the floral tape and wrap it around the leaf and around the skewer. And now you will be able to add that really easily. I'm just going to go ahead and keep building this up. I will use a combination of my steel pick machine and the skewers. I'm so happy with how this turned out. And you can see it coordinates with my other items on my mantle just beautifully.
So we're going to remove this stem. I'm using raw silk fusion mineral paint, and I'm going to mix it with baking soda to give it some texture. When the paint's still wet, sprinkle a little bit of the baking soda on top and just sort of go like this. While our pumpkin is drying, I've got an ordinary $2 wreath, and I'm going to cover it with water, soften it, and I'm going to let it soak overnight. I'm going to put some Annie Sloan wax on it. I'm going to first put a coat of clear, and then I'm going to come back with a little bit of dark wax. Show you, I have quite the collection of real stems, and all we're going to do is simply hot glue this on and hold it. You can use any kind of a basket. And I have this tall flower pot that I'm going to put in the center. I have some old burlap bags. I'm now going to take a grapevine wreath, and I like to pull it apart a little bit and just fit it right over the top. Now I have a large handful of Spanish moss, and now I'm going to place the pumpkin that we created. I'm going to add some berries. I just picked a couple sprigs up at Michael's. There is our front porch pumpkin decoration, and the beauty of this pumpkin is it will last forever.